Would it be fair to say that you think that the easy money has been made and that the worst is yet to come for the broad markets?
For the broader markets, yes.
So what is it not? Commodities?
I would be in commodities and precious metals right now. Period. Almost, and cash. And and you toe dip into crypto until you get a bottom form. And I mean that as a 10-year time horizon in crypto. I take a much different view of crypto than other people do. As much as I know anything in this world, I know that crypto has the capability of outcompeting all of the central bank currencies. How long that's going to take is a good question, and I might even be around to see it. So use emotional lows to buy assets that are quality assets, and buy them at the extreme bottom when everybody else is saying, "Oh my God, you can't buy it." When everybody's screaming that Bitcoin's going to 3,500, I'm buying. When everybody screams that gold is going to $1,000, I'm buying. I'm dead serious. When you have to be a contrarian in a world like this, you have to be an extreme contrarian, and you have to use that kind of sentiment. Like a Bitcoin top is in when your shoe shine boy or stocks are in. When the shoe shine boy is giving you stock tips. Well, guess what? Right? That's the classic saying. Well, the same thing happens in bear markets. When everybody is telling you, when every financial analyst in the world, or every money manager, or every my money guy is telling you, don't put your money in that, it's toxic. They're followers. They're not leaders. That's where you want to be. You always want to be where everybody else isn't, because the next bull market is where the current bear market is. Why? Everything's cyclic, and the bear market of today becomes the bull market of tomorrow as costs and the malinvestment within that industry has been worked out and gotten rid of, and the bad producers have been shed, and the bad workers have been shed, and the useless middle management has been shed, and the production systems have been streamlined, and idiotic products have been thrown away. Once you reach that moment, that's when the potential for growth can occur. And that's when you want to buy the assets, when they're undervalued, because the market will continue to believe that they are useless and it's not doing anything. And that's why you have to be very careful in how to learn how to read charts properly and identify those opportunities. And you can help to refine your timing as to when you should buy into those things. So those opportunities are always there.
I wish I could add something here, but when it comes down to Bitcoin, I don't understand cryptocurrencies enough so that I know how to value them. But I did want to go back to the point that you made about commodities and precious metals specifically, just to clarify that when you're talking about gold, are you just specifically talking about physical gold, or do you
include
the equities in there as well?
I mean, gold miners are fine, but you should own but look, when I say your pool of real savings, that is in an investment portfolio, that's high yield commodity type funds. So you want royalty trusts that are paying 7 to 9%. You want preferred stocks off of an LNG carrier, for example, right? That's going to pay 8.5% plus possible a little bit of price appreciation.
It's interesting to me that you mentioned physical gold, because I have a relationship with it. It's mostly, I don't approach it from a speculator's perspective. If I'm speculating and I am on gold, I'm doing that through the equities. So give me some rope here and allow me to push back a little bit in an effort to learn. I'm not
absolutely
or whatever.
But you're more than welcome to take me apart. I'm happy to do so.
I couldn't, even if I wanted to. But so oftentimes in conversations as these, stuff like food shortages, doubling rents, and energy inflation, stuff like that would come up, which is only normal because that's what's happening. It's a real issue, right? But we got over 2/3 of Americans living paycheck to paycheck. They don't even have $1,000 to their name.
Absolutely.
Who's going to be buying what people call a pet rock or anything else for that matter if they cannot afford roof, food, and protection? Who's going to be buying it?
Retail is not what drives the gold price. Never has. What drives the gold price is the big money managers at this point that we're not looking at retail. They like to sell to retail into the peaks. They like to get retail into gold at the tops, that's when they're getting out. Okay. Where you're going to see a shift is in asset allocation strategies in fund managers who don't know where else to put their money because they can't trust the currencies, they can't trust the bonds, and they can't trust the stocks. And now a lot of them are not allowed from their prospectuses to move into that. And that's part of the reason why gold trades the way it does. So when people are desperate, they're going to do what they have to do. And when you start seeing retail moving into gold, it's because they're desperate. It's what's going to fuel gold's price rise. You don't want to be in gold after it, crosses the $4,000 to $5,000 mark, because gold is going to run to probably around 10. I don't think they're going to let it run higher than that. They'll let it go 400% or 500%, and they're going to hope that they can keep it under control this time. That's what they've done in every other previous iteration of this, right?
But if you can leverage that move in gold, because now you're talking about big percentage moves in gold, you might
can make a lot of money.
Yeah, but you might want to look at the equities, and now specifically something that you've been looking into is Russian equities. And I'm sorry that I'm moving on, but
I'm happy to have all these conversations. I'm not allowed to buy Russian equities anymore. I had my people in Gazprom in 2014 collecting a 9% dividend and waiting for during a generation. I called a generational bull market in Russian equities back in 2015. I had people in RSX and Gazprom. Just buy them and just forget about it. Like, be dumb. Just forget about it. Like, it's easy. It's the easiest money you'll ever make. The Russians are going to win this war. I hate to break it to everybody, but they're winning. So, because they have the hammer, they have all the things that everybody else needs to produce, and they can enforce a new monetary regime by no longer saying, I will no longer take nothing for our something. And that nothing is your debt. I will not take your debt because I don't want your debt. You don't even want me to have your debt. You don't even want me to be able to spend your debt. So think about what the European Union did. The European Union said, you're not allowed to spend euros or pay off your euro-denominated debt with those euros that you earn. But we still reserve the right to pay you in euros. Now, I'm sorry, Antonio, but if somebody walked into your bakery and said that to you, would you accept euros anymore for your baked goods, for your pumpernickel? Like, I'm going to walk in, I'll take 2 loaves of pumpernickel. I'm going to pay you in this currency that you can't use. That's what they did. And they virtue signaled for 2 weeks saying it wasn't legal, that gas for rubles wasn't legal. And they went, look at the force majeure clause in every Gazprom contract. I published it on one of my blogs. I'm like, there it is. Sanctions. We can abrogate this treaty. You're paying us in rubles. And if you don't like it, you don't get any gas. Because all of this power that these people have is based on this ephemeral idea that they can get access to money at a lower cost than you can. This money is not hard money. The dollar is not a hard currency. I argue with my partner about this all the time. He uses that phrase, hard currency, in relation to the dollar. I just look at him like, dude, it's not hard currency. It's not. I'm sorry. I don't care. It's not hard. It's fungible. It's replaceable. It's not hard to everybody in the world. It's hard to some people, and it will. And every day, it's losing value. It's losing the schmutz that makes it hard. It's becoming softer every day. The euro never acquired hard currency status because Mario Draghi took you all to negative interest rates 10 years ago or 8 years ago. It's insane. It's the dumbest thing anybody could have ever done. But they were prepping for what they're going to do to you next, by the way. So the Russians said, give me rubles. You're not going to give me something for something I can use for something that you can use. And we're going to make that trade. That trade is going to be equitable. And since I've tied the ruble to a buy price, a floor price on gold based on the price of the ruble, I now am getting something for something. Under every circumstance, all of my exporters are getting something for something. And they can choose to take those rubles and they can buy Russian debt with it, expand the Russian sovereign debt market, or they can buy gold with it. And the Russian central bank will be happy to buy it, or we have an internal gold market. What I'm expecting to see from the Russians actually going forward is the establishment of commodity futures trading with all the money they're making, and and to work with China to really wrest control of the commodity futures trading business, which supposedly sets the marginal price for a barrel of oil, an ounce of gold, an ounce of silver, a pound of copper, blah, 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 blah. They're the ones producing this stuff. Why does City of London and Chicago get to set the prices for it in dollars? Why do we do that? If I'm, I'm sure Putin and his Security Council and his advisors have been asking this question for years. Why do we let them do this? We need to get out from underneath this. So if you still have the opportunity to buy Russian equities, go for it, man. I can't. I've got my people trapped in a couple of positions, and they're all like, "Well, I'll just hold on to them until they force liquidate them, or we get politically sane people in Washington and they end the war and they lift the sanctions on Russian ADRs." And I fully expect that to happen at some point, but it may take 2 or 3 years. I'm like, well, if you're by then, Gazprom's going to be 600 rubles. There's going to be 600 rubles to per share as opposed to like the 230, 240 that's trading now. So yeah, just wait, or consider it a loss, and it is what it is. But considering that you probably put less money into that than you did in the latest crypto scam that went belly up, that I never told you to buy, I think you're okay. So I mean, not as a stock picker and as an investment, not advisor, but as an investment information guy, because obviously this is not advice. The best you can do is, you're going to be right. If you're right more than 55, 60% of the time, you're doing great. If you have a portfolio that's mostly black, that's like 85% black, well, good on you. In my core portfolio, almost every position is in the black. Only the speculative bets are the ones in the red, and those are the ones where you take some found money, some little bit of, and you buy a gold exploration company and hope it pays off in 10 years. And sometimes those work and sometimes they don't. But in my portfolio, relatively speaking, it's like 1% of the portfolio. You put 0.5% or something out of a portfolio today. I think is worth nominally around, it's got invested capital of around $60,000, where these are $250 spec bets, relatively speaking. Okay. So there's not like maybe 2 or 3, there's up to 5% of your money in these spec bets. Some of them are going to pay off and some of them aren't. But the rest of the portfolio has been throwing off 22% on an annualized return basis for 4 years.
That's a good job. That's a good job. How come you haven't picked up on uranium?
I have.
Okay. That's good.
I don't like to give everything away. Like, I mean, I think uranium's a good buy.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean,
at this point in time, it's the best way to get access to the one stock in the world that I have never been allowed to buy. I say this all the time, that I wanted to buy as much of as I could possibly buy, and that's Rosatom, which is the Russian state and atomic energy company. Yeah. You'll notice that Putin is willing to privatize Rosneft. He's willing to privatize part of Gazprom, but he's not willing to sell from the Russian state one damn share of Rosatom.
Well, that's everything. Rosatom is energy, is everything, not only the economy. So Putin sells that out, it's done. But he opens himself up for a very, very, very ugly scenario. And I just like, when I realized that Rosatom was not, that none of it was on the open market. This was years ago. I mean, we were going back to 2015 when I first started looking at 2014, 2015. I started looking into this. I'm like, I can see where this is going. And then I look at the book of business, and the book of business that Rosatom has, it's like $130 billion worth of in process contracts. Okay. They're building like 7 nuclear power plants over in China. They're building, a couple in Turkey. They're building all over the place. Yeah. They're building them in Iran. They're building the whole of Central Asia is going to be moved into, these 3rd and 4th gen. They're going to still be light water reactors, which is annoying because I don't think light water reactors, not all of them are light water reactors, but it's terrible technology. Some of them are better. The later versions of these are better because they're not creating, pressure and steam and a potential, explosive release like Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island and the Gen 1, Gen 2 reactors, Fukushima. But, the later versions of these are better because they're not creating, pressure and steam and a potential, explosive release like Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island and the Gen 1, Gen 2 reactors, Fukushima. But, the later versions of these are better because they're not creating, pressure and steam and a potential, explosive release like Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island and the Gen 1, Gen 2 reactors, Fukushima.
there's technology out there that needs to be explored. We're not really doing yet. I'm still in the early stages of that. I'm starting to look into thorium molten salt reactors, and I think they're very, very interesting. There's no market for it yet. It's a business that has been suppressed tremendously, but
well, you have the newly listed SMR, small modular reactors. That's a new
those are great, and the technology. But when you look into the energetics of thorium molten salt, it's off the chart better than every other type of energy that we've come across, and thorium's freaking everywhere. And we should be moving to a thorium economy. The Chinese just spun up, have their first 4 megawatt reactor is up and running. It's the first one. This is a technology that was perfected by Oak Ridge back in National Laboratory back in the 50s. It was shut down. Okay. Because the dirty secret is that, in the nuclear power industry in the United States was another way of outsourcing the DoD's budget for building nuclear weapons. And they could take it off the DoD's balance sheet and put it on the DOE's budget. But it was all in service of the DoD, just like NASA was mostly Department of Defense. I mean, 90% of NASA's clients were Department of Defense, putting military satellites up in space. That's mostly what NASA made their money at. Okay. Like most of the the actual Defense Department budget in the United States is laughable. It's much, much bigger than that because so many other departments are actually exist in service of the Department of Defense. So, it's not the same as it used to be. Some of that has been deprecated over time, but certainly in the 50s and the 60s during the Cold War, that's what we did. And it's derailed, superior technology. Again, we've malinvested in, uranium-238 light water reactors. It's a malinvestment, and it's a malinvestment we're going to pay for. We're going to continue to pay for the next 30 years until these are all decommissioned and we move on to something else. And it's also kept us tied to the ground. It's kept us tied to oil. It's kept us tied to gas. It's kept us tied to things that we shouldn't be doing. And so it's interesting that Russia, now they're moving into Rosatom is building one of these, which I think is interesting that Rosatom and China are building thorium molten salt reactors. And Russia is the biggest oil and gas exporter in the world. And they're moving into the thorium economy. Slowly, it's 20 years away, right? At this point, they're making pilot plants that are 4, 5, 6 megawatt at this point. It's like they're still making pilot plants. We're still at that stage. There's no investment scheme. There's no supply chain. There's none of that stuff yet. Interesting. And I'm talking about it now because I think it's really interesting. And I think it's something people need to really start putting pressure on because this is a safe way of generating vast amounts of nuclear energy that would actually get us off of oil and gas and would do all the things that the Davos crowd tells us they want us to do. The problem with it is it's so energy efficient. We would wind up in a world where we didn't need them. And that's why we don't have nice things. Because the more energy independent we are individually, the less we need them. The more we can just say, you know what? No, I'm not paying my taxes this year. No, I'm not doing it. It's why the electrical grid in the United States is almost wholly state controlled. And if not, and whatever is privatized is still regulated to the point by state power companies and state regulators to the point of it doesn't matter. I'm not allowed to generate my own power and sell it. I'm not allowed. State of Florida. I'm not allowed. I am not allowed to build any kind of reactor in my backyard and set up a copper line and sell power to my neighbors. I'm not allowed to do it. I'm barely even allowed to generate my own power, technically. And this is one of the freest states in the union. But when it comes to power, oh no. The state of Florida, they're like classically fascist. It's really bad. So yeah, there you go. So
okay, so you've picked up on that too. That's great. So you're talking commodities. You're into energy commodities, precious metals, stuff like that. You would be into Russian stocks. You're giving me a fair idea of what what you're up to there. What do you think though? What have you identified? You know, every investment has its risk. So in your strategy, in your portfolio approach, what is there that could make you wrong? What do you think could happen?
The thing that is the worrisome part at this point is if the Fed is not serious about raising rates and they trash the dollar. I don't have a lot of and I'll tell you why. Again, this is what the world is moving toward. If Russia loses the war, if Russia's taken over by the West, if all of a sudden Mikhail Khodorkovsky and Bill Browder are running Russia again like they were in the 90s, meaning Goldman Sachs and Deutsche Bank and City of London are running Russia and not Putin and anybody to the right of Putin, because Putin's the moderate, by the way, then I'm going to be wrong, because they're going to get control of Russia. They're going to get control of the natural resources. And then they're going to go full commie implementation, MMT, UBI, all the rest of it, all the stuff, all that horrific stuff that you hear Yuval Harari talk about, Klaus Schwab, all of it, every bit of it, every single bit of it, biometric IDs, green passes, endless COVID shots, yada, 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 all of that stuff. It'll look like a cross between an episode of Black Mirror and Minority Report. That's the world they want. That's the world they're building, even when we keep telling them we don't want it, and it's failing. They are still continuing to build what sections of it they can with the time that they have left in power. Never forget that. Like, seriously, go back and watch Minority Report with Tom Cruise again, and just watch all the technology. Don't watch them. I mean, the movie's fine. I like the movie. I actually like the movie. It's based on a great Philip K. Dick story. Again, huge fan of Philip K. Dick. And I'm not really crazy about the whole Spielberg anti-gun message at the end of the movie, because he's Spielberg and he can't help himself, because he's he's got terminal boomerism. But it's his he can't help himself. But the technology used in Minority Report, he went to basically the WEF to ask them what the future is going to look like. It's all in the extra material on the DVD. Like, they predicted a future technology, like, and basically it looks like exactly what, the Davos and the WEF have been talking about for years. And including, remember, when Cruz has to go underground, right, to get his eyes repaired, and then so he can go back into the real world. That is all the unvaxxed. That's the world they have for the unvaxxed in their heads. Like, these people are not, they're not subtle. They tell you exactly what they're going to do. The problem is that, if everybody listening to me does what I tell them to do, we can beat them. It's easy. Just got to say no and don't play their games. So you take physical delivery on the COMEX and then stop playing in the casinos. Like, you do those things and then force them to settle you in cash, and then you never play again. And then eventually liquidity dries up to the point where, okay, well, the paper gold price doesn't mean anything, because physical gold is settling at $5,000 an ounce, but the futures price is $1,500. Like, why would you care about that? And the stock price is going to, and the stocks and the miners are going to be getting $5,000 an ounce in the real spot market for their gold. The futures price will disconnect from the physical gold price, and it won't matter. That's what's coming. I know that's coming. I don't know when it's going to come, but it's in the process of happening. And the Russians can make that happen tomorrow. Well, not tomorrow, but certainly within another 12 months of this gas for rubles and gold thing, forget it. Like, the whole system will look completely different. And, you'll be staring at a euro that's trading at 85 cents to the dollar, 70 cents to the dollar.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm dead serious when I say that. Be very careful. If I were you, I would not have any debt.
Never had
any debt. Yep. No debt. And if you do have debt, it's debt that you can give up. If you have a loan on your second car, Okay, at 2%. Okay. So you're paying 2% to drive a nice car around. And at some point where you're like, oh, I don't need that anymore. Here you go, jingle mail. Like we did here in the United States with all our mortgages in 2008. Here you go. Here's the keys. They're in the mail. We don't want the house anymore. We called it jingle mail. This happened a million times in the United States. Like people couldn't pay their mortgages anymore. They're like, and they walked away from the house and they left the keys in the mail slot, for the bank to deal with. Or they just mailed the keys back to the mortgage company without the payment. Saying, we're not paying anymore. Here's the keys. Bye. We're going to see a lot of that.